and welcome to Strategic Sunday. We're going to be continuing a reading of Awaken the Giant Within. This is a fantastic book about how to take immediate control of your mental, emotional, physical, and financial destiny. More than 1 million copies sold. I'm pretty sure it's probably got at least tens of millions of copies sold. But with that said, this is a really powerful book. And we've had a continuation in this series where we were discussing this concept of neuro-associative conditioning. That's NAC. It is a patented, trademarked, I don't know if it's patented, but I think it's trademarked by Tony Robbins and his team as a way to help create lasting change in your life. Because what he found early in his career, and I'm just summarizing some of the ideas before we move on, where we left off last, there was this idea that he was able to help a lot of people make change almost instantly, but that change would not last well, it would last like a couple years, and people would go back to him and they'd say, hey, you changed me a little bit, but I'm like falling back into my bad habits. You're like whatever. So what he did is he started to improve the technology, and he created neuroassociative conditioning, which is ultimately geared towards helping anybody move towards what they want and stay away from what they do not want, and ultimately find greater, whether it's success or, if you don't like that word, whether it's for more freedom, more of a social life, more of a family life, more of better overall work, anything like that. So anyway, how do you break a bad habit, or how do you set a goal, an ambitious goal, and start working towards that and make it a habit, something that becomes ingrained in you, that becomes a part of you, that you just naturally flow toward on a daily basis? And that's a big question that gets answered here. So we're going to continue on. In previous videos, we did NAC, Neuro-Associative Conditioning Master Step 1 through 5. And we're going to be moving into NAC Master Step 6 with Test It. Let's review what you've accomplished. You've decided upon the new pattern of emotion or behavior that you desire. You've got some leverage on yourself to change it. You've interrupted the old pattern. You've found a new alternative, and you've conditioned it until it's consistent. The only step left is to test it to make sure that it's going to work in the future. One of the ways of doing this that's taught in neuro-linguistic programming is future pacing. This means that you imagine the situation that used to frustrate you, for example, and notice if in fact it still makes you feel frustrated, or if your new pattern of feeling fascinated has replaced it. If normally you still have this urge to smoke every time you feel overwhelmed, imagine yourself in an overwhelming situation and notice if instead you have an urge to read or run or whatever new alternative you've conditioned. By imagining the same stimuli that used to trigger your old emotion or behavior, and noting that you do feel certain that your new empowering alternative is automatic, you will know that this new pattern will work for you in the future. In addition, you must test the ecology of the change you've just made. The word ecology implies the study of consequences. What will the impact of these changes you made in yourself have on those around you? Will they support your business and personal relationships? Make certain that this new pattern will be appropriate based on your current lifestyle, beliefs, and values. So that's really interesting to take a moment and reflect on that. If normally you still have this urge to smoke every time you feel overwhelmed, imagine yourself in an overwhelming situation and notice if instead you have an urge to read or run or whatever new alternative you've conditioned. By imagining the same stimuli that used to trigger your old emotion or behavior, and noting that you do feel certain that your new empowering alternative is automatic, you will know that this new pattern will work for you in the future. That's a pretty powerful concept right there of this idea, and it's not easy to do, in my opinion. Just thinking of this idea that you have to know what stimulates you to do something. Say, I used to have the habit of biting my nails. I don't bite my nails anymore. I haven't bitten my nails. I don't remember the last time I bit my nails. I might have done it once or twice in the past 10 years, just randomly. I'm like, oh, let me just see what it feels like, and then I don't like it anymore. But when it comes to that, it really comes down to having to know what the stimulus is, and that's probably the hardest part, is knowing what triggers you. I know that's a terrible word to use, but what triggers you, what influences you, what motivates you into smoking, drinking, biting your nails, yelling at somebody for no apparent reason. What are some other bad habits? Some other bad habits might be procrastinating, or making inappropriate statements of people. I don't know. So with that said, just in consideration of this, what's the trigger? What's the stimuli? What's the stimulus? The thing that makes you feel like you have to do it. And that's probably the hardest thing to find. Sometimes it's easy. Sometimes it's a little bit more difficult. But at the end of the day, if you can know what that is, it sounds like a very powerful idea to imagine yourself in that situation doing the new behavior and having the new emotion. And that takes some work. So with that said, we'll continue on in the book. On the next page is a simple checklist that you can use to help yourself be certain that your new success pattern will last and that it's appropriate. If your attempt at creating this pattern didn't last, you need to recycle back to step 1. Are you really clear about what you want and why you want it? Review step 2. Most people who've tried unsuccessfully to make a change usually don't have enough leverage. You may need to make a public commitment in order to get more leverage on yourself. Make it to those people who will not let you off the hook. If you feel that there's enough leverage, check step 3. If you know what you want and you've got enough leverage, it's very possible that you're like the fly beating itself repeatedly against the window pane. You've done the same things over and over again with more and more intensity, but you haven't changed your approach. You must interrupt your pattern. If you feel that all these steps are in place, go to step 4. If your efforts still have not produced a change, you're clearly demonstrating that you've left out this step. Find a new empowering alternative for getting yourself out of pain and into pleasure that is as powerful and convenient as your old approach was. All this means is that you now have an opportunity to explore being a little more creative. Find a role model, somebody else who's been able to eliminate this habit or negative set of emotions that you want to change. The ecology check. 1. Make certain that pain is fully associated with the old pattern. When you think of your old behavior or feelings, do you picture and feel things that are painful now instead of pleasurable? 2. Make certain pleasure is fully associated with the new pattern. When you think of your new behavior or feelings, do you picture and feel things that are pleasurable now instead of painful? Align with your values, beliefs, and rules. Is the new behavior or feeling consistent with the values, beliefs, and rules in your life? We will discuss these in later chapters. Make sure the benefits of the old pattern have been maintained. Will the new behavior or feelings still allow you to get benefits and feelings of pleasure that you used to get from the old pattern? 5. Future pace. Imagine yourself behaving in this new way in the future. Imagine the thing that would have triggered you to adopt the old pattern. Feel certain that you can use your new pattern instead of the old one. So, repeating those 5 big steps to checking the ecology, the environment of the consequences of making change in your life. So first, making certain that pain is fully associated with the old pattern. Then number 2, making certain pleasure is fully associated with the new pattern. Does it feel good? Do you feel great about it? Align with your values and beliefs and rules. Talking about this later in the book. Make sure that the benefits of the old pattern have been maintained. So whatever the old pattern, whatever you felt with the old pattern, you need to still feel those feelings that you got, or the benefits of, at least. And then finally, future pace. Imagine yourself behaving like this in the future. So if you started to make a change, but then not followed through, you obviously haven't reinforced your pattern with enough pleasure. Use step 5, conditioning. Utilize both variable and fixed schedules of reinforcement to make sure that your new, empowering pattern lasts. The 6 steps of NAC can be used for anything: challenges with relationships, problems in business, being stuck in a pattern of yelling at your children. Let's say you worry too much about things over which you have no control. How can you use the 6 steps to change this empowering pattern? Ask yourself, what do I want to do instead of worry? Get leverage on yourself and realize what worry does to destroy your life. Bring it to a threshold. See what it could cost you ultimately in your life so that you're not willing to pay that price anymore. Imagine the joy of getting this monkey off your back and being truly free once and for all. Here's a funny little comic here. Hey Bucko, I'm through begging. A little dog holding a gun to its owner's head. I guess that's a little violent, but amusing, right? 3, but you got to interrupt the pattern. 3, interrupt the pattern. Every time you worry, break the pattern by being totally outrageous. Stick your finger up your nose or belt out, "Oh, what a beautiful morning," at the top of your lungs. 4, create an empowering alternative. What will you do instead of worry? Pull out your journal and write down a plan of what you can do immediately instead. Maybe you can go for a run, and while you're running, you can think of new solutions. That's something I think is so interesting, because running has been such a great way for me to reflect on, all sorts of things. Life, it's meditative, what I like to do, my own thoughts and fears, because I personally don't like running, but I forced myself to do it because I've definitely noticed tons of positive effects from it. And it's really interesting to think about, yourself during your runs. So, right now we're moving into 5. It's condition the new pattern. Vividly imagine and rehearse this new pattern with tremendous emotional intensity and repetition until this new thought, behavior, or emotional pattern is automatic. Reinforce yourself by taking the first step. See yourself succeeding again and again. Seeing the results in advance can give you the pleasure you desire. Again, use repetition and emotional intensity to condition the new pattern until it's consistent. 6, test it and see if it works. Think about the situation that used to worry you and see that you no longer worry in this situation. You can even use these same 6 master steps of NAC to negotiate a contract. By the way, thank you for tuning in. This is a continuation of the reading of Awaken the Giant Within, and this is a book you get so much out of, because if you were to ask me what I think this book is about, I would say that it's about you. If you were to read this book or have someone read it to you, it is ultimately a book about you and what your goals are, what your missions are, what your personal beliefs are, what your challenges in life are, what your fears, your limitations, and your goals, your ambitions, and all of those things. And that's ultimately what it's about. You, and helping guide you through those guiding you toward what it is that you want to achieve. And with that said, looking at this next section, an example of how you can use it to negotiate a contract. So you can even use these same 6 master steps of NAC to negotiate a contract. How powerful is that? If you could use it to negotiate a contract, you use it for many other things as well. How to negotiate different things in life, how to, I don't want to say win an argument, but how to successfully, handle a situation that might include an argument. Instead of having an argument, how you can negotiate your way through that situation. And ultimately, life is about a bunch of, negotiations. 1, the first step is to lay the groundwork. Get clear about what you want and what has prevented you from getting it. What does the other person want? What's in it for both of you? How will you know you have a successful contract? 2, get leverage by getting that person to link pain to not making the deal and pleasure to making it. 3, interrupt the pattern of any belief or idea that's keeping the deal from moving ahead. 4, create an alternative that neither of you thought of before that will meet both your needs. 5, reinforce that alternative by constantly reinforcing the pleasure and the positive impact of this alternative. And 6, see if it's going to work out for everybody, a win-win situation. If so, negotiate to a successful conclusion. And this is a great time to pause and just think about like something simple in your life, or it doesn't have to be like a contract negotiation or anything, but it could be anything like negotiating with your children, or negotiating with the car dealership, or having to negotiate with someone on your team at work about what needs to be done. So first step, laying down the groundwork. If you got to negotiate something with your kids, having that conversation with them, laying everything down, what's in it for both of them. 2, getting leverage, showing that, helping them link pain, not inflicting pain, but linking pain if they don't make the deal, and if they do what you ask, or do what you're thinking about, that they're gonna get pleasure from it too. And 3, interrupt the pattern of any belief or idea that's keeping the deal from moving ahead. Now, it would be nice for him to go into that, like, are you just supposed to shout at the top of your lungs, let's make this deal, or look, what a wonderful day, let's go do something. I don't know. Or there are sausages in the sky. Something to interrupt the limiting pattern. But I'm sure you can come up with an example for yourself. 4, create an alternative that neither of you thought of before that will meet both your needs. That's a pretty powerful one, because you can get so focused on the initial idea. Say you're trying to negotiate with your significant other on what you should eat for dinner. Or let's give it a little bit more high stakes, like where you should go for vacation. You've got money and you're trying to determine where you want to go for vacation. Your significant other wants to go to Hawaii and you want to go to San Francisco. And, oh yeah, actually I got a better example. I was working on a set with Robert Downey Jr. Yes. And I had an opportunity to see him work, and he was talking about a scene with a director and another actor. And in this scene with the director and actor, there's some back and forth. They were, really trying to decide, because this is like more of a spontaneous scene, and they were trying to figure out like which actor should say a line and like how to work out the scene. And then he was like, and then Robert Downey Jr. freaking as charming and as interesting and as charismatic, and the guy who can have everything, and just be able to negotiate his way through life, which is how I imagine that top named actors, successful business people do. He goes, you know what? I think we can have both in this. right? I can have lunch now and I can have dinner later, or we can have brunch and dinner, or whatever. We can have lunch at like 1 p.m. and like 4 p.m. So I thought that's not his exact words, but it was really in that on that street, that branch where he was like, yeah, we can make it both ideas work. And that might not work in every situation, or it might take somebody like Robert Downey Jr., who's probably the most influential person on that set, so to make it happen. But just know that it's possible that there can be two winners in a situation, and if you get so focused on the first concept, the very first idea, laying the groundwork, this is how it has to be, whatever. You might forget the best alternatives, which can be something that's great for both of you. So back to the example of like working or negotiating with your significant other on where you want to go on vacation. I mean, it might be as simple as, hey, what's like Hawaii and San Francisco at the same time? Maybe it's going to like, I don't know, Australia or Bali or something. So getting stuck in your own ideas can really leave closed all the other amazing opportunities. But what is something like San Francisco and Hawaii? Something in between. A good nice little island. Bali, Japan's a nice island country, but Hong Kong. A lot of ideas there. Just throwing them out. Might not be in the budget if you just originally plan to go to Hawaii, but there you go. So some realistic examples there. Okay, so number 4, create an alternative that neither of you thought of before that will meet both your needs. Robert Downey Jr. is fantastic at that. And 5, reinforce the alternative by constantly reinforcing the pleasure and the positive impact of this alternative. Number 5, reinforce the alternative by constantly reinforcing the pleasure. So, constantly reinforcing this idea, pointing out the idea that you're going to have pleasure and you're going to have a positive impact from the alternative. And then see if it's going to work out for everybody. Make sure it's a win-win situation. If so, negotiate to a successful conclusion. The same principles can be used to get the kids to clean their rooms, improve the quality of your marriage, boost your company's level of quality, get more enjoyment out of your job, and make your country a better place to live. By the way, sometimes our kids use these same 6 steps on us in abbreviated form. Remember what I said, if you get enough leverage and interrupt somebody's pattern strongly enough, they'll find a new pattern and condition it. A friend of mine tried almost everything he knew to stop smoking. Finally, his pattern was broken. How? His 6-year-old daughter finally walked in one day while he was lighting up. She knew what she wanted. She had massive leverage, and she interrupted his pattern by crying, "Daddy, please stop killing yourself." "Honey," he said, "what are you talking about? What's wrong?" She repeated herself and said, "Honey, I'm not killing myself." She nodded her head, pointed to the cigarette, and sobbed, "Daddy, please stop killing yourself. I want to be there. I want you to be there when I get married." This was a man who tried to quit dozens of times and nothing had worked until then. The cigarettes were out the door that day and he hasn't smoked since. With this heartstrings firmly grasped in her tiny hand, she instantly got what she wanted. Since then, he's found many alternatives to smoking that give him the same pleasurable sensations. Isn't that great? And I think it's so powerful because, the child has power. Your child, families, your child can have so much power. And sadly, not everyone gets to have that experience, before a major health crisis or something. And, how do we really get those situations? How do we experience something like that can motivate us in a positive direction without having kids? And at the end of the day, this book does a great job of explaining some examples, but sometimes you do have to be self-motivated to go after what it is that you want, and avoid a bad pattern of life. So if all you do is the first 3 steps of NAC, that may be enough to create tremendous change. Once you've decided what you want, gained leverage, and interrupted the pattern, life often provides you with new ways of looking at things. And if the leverage is strong enough, you'll be compelled to find a new pattern and condition it, and you can pretty much count on the world to give you the test. Now, you have the NAC of change. The key is to use it, but you won't unless you know what you're using it for. You've got to know what you truly desire. You must find. Here we go, chapter 7. How to get what you really want. All emotions are pure, which gather you and lift you up. That emotion is impure, which seizes only one side of your being and so distorts you. Rainer Maria Rilke. So I got to think about that for a second. All emotions are pure, which gather you and lift you up. Okay, so all emotions are pure if they help uplift you. That emotion is impure, which seizes only one side of your being and distorts you. So if something changes you and just grabs like a part of you and I guess changes who you are, like doesn't really help contribute to your your prosperity or your growth, success, well-being, then it is impure. Interesting to think about. So yeah, give me my first attack. Elvis Presley always called for his first hit this way, fulfilling a bizarre daily ritual designed to make sure the king of Heartbreak Hotel got to sleep after a strenuous night performing. Elvis's assistant would open the first envelope and give him the usual, a rainbow-colored assortment of barbiturates, amytal, carbitol, nembutal or seconal, quaaludes, Valium, and Placidil, followed by 3 shots of Demerol injected in just below his bare shoulder blades. Oof. Before he went to sleep, Elvis's kitchen staff, which was on duty around the clock, would go to work. It then became a race to see how much food the king could consume before falling asleep. Typically, he'd eat 3 cheeseburgers or 6 or 7 banana splits before nodding off. Often, his assistants would have to dislodge food from his windpipe to keep him from choking to death. Elvis would then sleep for about 4 hours before stirring. That's pretty wild. I remember seeing the movie Elvis, and the new one with Baz Luhrmann and Austin Butler. Really beautifully filmed movie. But I think it's interesting. I think the movie did a great job of capturing Elvis in a respectful way. And on the other hand, I don't think it did as good of a job of capturing, the challenges, the abuse of, drugs and unhealthy habits that he really faced, to really capture that. Because at the end of the day, it would make him look really bad. But the movie, made him seem, and he was a great artist. People absolutely loved him. He was an amazing, talented person until the very last day. And with that said, I mean, it's really interesting to think about the things that we didn't see in the movie that occurred in his lifetime that truly had the most harmful negative effects on him, and that really wasn't captured that well. But Elvis is a legend, so may he rest in peace. With that said, so groggy that he had to be carried to the bathroom. He would make his second request by feebly tugging at his assistant's shirt. Elvis was unable to take the drugs himself, so the aide would pop the pills into his mouth and carefully pour water down his throat. Elvis was barely able to ask for the third attack. Instead, as a matter of routine, an aide would administer the dosage and let him continue to sleep until mid-afternoon, when the bloated king would jumpstart his body by popping Dexedrine and stuffing cocaine-soaked swabs up his nose before taking to the stage again. That's sad. On the day of his death, Elvis remained lucid and saved all of the attacks for one fatal dose. Why would a man, so universally adored by fans and seeming to have it all, regularly abuse his body and then take his own life in such a horrific way? According to David Stanley, Elvis's half-brother, it was because he much preferred being drugged and numb to being conscious and miserable. Unfortunately, it's not difficult to think of other famous figures, people at the top of their profession in the arts and business, who also brought about their own demise, either directly or indirectly. Think of writers like Ernest Hemingway and Sylvia Plath, actors like William Holden and Freddie Prinze, singers like Mama Cass Elliot and Janis Joplin. What do these people have in common? First, they are no longer here and we all experienced the loss. Second, they were all sold a bill of goods that said, someday, someone, somehow, something, and then I'll be happy. But when they achieved success, when they arrived on Easy Street and got a first-hand look at the American dream, they found that happiness still eluded them. So they continued to chase it, keeping the pain of existence at bay by drinking, smoking, overeating, until finally they got the oblivion they craved. They never discovered the true source of happiness. What these people demonstrated is something all too familiar to so many people. One, they didn't know what they really wanted out of life, so they distracted themselves with a variety of artificial mood alterants. Two, they developed not just neurological pathways, but expressways to pain, and their habits were driving them down these highways on a regular basis despite achieving the levels of success they once only dreamed of, and despite being surrounded by the love and admiration of millions of fans, they had far more references for pain. They became quite adept at generating it quickly and easily because they made virtual trunk lines to it. 3. They didn't know how to make themselves feel good. They had to turn to some outside force to help them deal with the present. 4. They never learned the nuts and bolts of how to consciously direct the focus of their own minds. They allowed the pain and pleasure of their environments to control them rather than taking control themselves. Now, contrast these stories with a letter I received recently from a woman who utilized my work to utterly and completely change the quality of her life. So let's go over some of these ideas real quick. What is it that they really wanted in those times? I mean, when you finally have success, number one, they didn't know what they really wanted out of life. When they found success, when they found fame, when they found fortune, when they found, people loving them and their art and admiration and all of those things, what were they really looking for after that? And, they went to mood alterants, drugs, unfortunately, or alcohol, or whatever it is. And they did find, I'm guessing that some of them found, it felt good to them at the time, but with it came a lot of tragedy. So they developed not just neurological pathways, but expressways to pain. So they had pain, they had their habits, and they didn't know how to make themselves feel good. Yeah, that's true. They turned to other things, and they never learned the nuts and bolts of consciously directing the focus of their own minds. I think that's one of the most powerful things right there. I mean, that's a good wrap-up for that specific section. Consciously guiding your own mind. Not letting someone else, not letting some beliefs that you developed as a kid, not letting something that you decided on, 20 years ago that really hasn't worked for you, and then not making a change or whatever. So let's look at this letter. Dear Tony, I had been severely abused my entire life from infancy until the death of my second husband. As a result of the abuse and severe trauma, I developed a mental illness known as multiple personality disorder with 49 different personalities. None of my personalities knew about the others or what had happened in each of their lives. The only relief I had in 49 years of living as a multiple was in the form of self-destructive behavior. I know it sounds strange, but, and this is going to get much more serious, so, feel free to turn the video off if it feels like it's too much. But I know it sounds strange, but self-mutilation used to give relief. After one of my many attempts at suicide, I was sent to the hospital and put under a doctor's care. In order to integrate the personalities, I had to go back to the original trauma that created each personality. That trauma had to be relived, remembered, and felt. Each of my alters handled a specific function, a selective ability to remember, and usually a single emotional tone. I worked with an expert in the field of MPD, and he helped me to integrate all 49 personalities into one. What kept me going through all of the different processes we used was feeling that many of my people were very unhappy and my life had become so chaotic. One alter did not know what the other was doing, and we found ourselves in all kinds of situations and places that when I switched I have no memory of. We thought that by becoming one we would be happy, the ultimate goal. That was my misconception. What a shocker. I lived a year of hell. I found myself very unhappy and grieving for each of my personalities. I missed each of my people and sometimes wanted them back the way they were. This was very difficult, and I made 3 more attempts at suicide that year and again was admitted to a hospital. During the past year, I happened to see your program on TV and ordered your 30-day tape series, Personal Power. I listened to them over and over, grasping at anything that I could use. My breakthrough came when I started to listen to your monthly Power Talks. I learned things from you as a single being that I never learned as a multiple. I learned for the first time in 50 years that happiness comes from within. As a single being, I now have the memories of the horrors that each of the 49 endured. When these memories come up, I can look at them. And if they become overbearing, I can now change my point of focus as I learned from you. And not in a dissociative way as I had done before. No longer do I have to put myself in an amnesiac trance and switch to another person. I am learning more and more about myself and am learning how to live as a single being. I know that I have a long way to go and a lot of exploring to do. I am sorting out my goals and planning how to get there for now. I have begun to lose weight and plan to be at goal weight for Christmas, a nice gift to me. I also know that I would like to have a healthy, non-abusive relationship with a man. Previous to my hospital admittance, I worked full-time for IBM and had 4 businesses. Holy crap. That's pretty amazing for someone with multiple personalities. Today I'm running a new business and am enjoying the increased sales I've been able to realize since my release from the hospital. I'm getting to know my children and grandchildren, but most importantly, I'm getting to know me. Sincerely, Elizabeth Pietrzak. That's Pietrzak. I'm sure you could probably find that if you looked online. But my goodness, I mean, it's pretty amazing to think that someone with those challenges are still able to run a business. That's pretty cool. I mean, of course, like the entire thing is pretty fascinating, but to know that, someone fully functioning, someone who seems like totally normal, successful, and all those things can have these challenges. There's a lot there, a lot to unravel. What do you want? So as you're watching this, now's a good time to really think about what it is that you want. And back to the book. Ask yourself what you truly want in life. Do you want a loving marriage, the respect of your children? Do you want plenty of money, fast cars, a thriving business, a house on the hill? Do you want to travel the world, visit exotic ports of call, see historical landmarks firsthand? Do you want to be idolized by millions as a rock musician or as a celebrity with your star on Hollywood Boulevard? Do you want to leave your mark for posterity as the inventor of a time travel machine? Do you want to work with Mother Teresa to save the world or take a proactive role in making a measurable impact environmentally? Whatever you desire or crave, perhaps you should ask yourself, why do you want these things? Do you want fine cars, for example, because you really desire the feelings of accomplishment and prestige you think they would bring? Why do you want a great family life? Is it because you think it will give you feelings of love, intimacy, connection, or warmth? Do you want to save the world because of the feelings of contribution and making a difference you believe this will give you? In short, then, isn't it true that what you really want is simply to change the way you feel? What it all comes down to is the fact that you want these things or results because you see them as means to achieving certain feelings, emotions, or states that you desire. Incredible. So when somebody kisses you, what makes you feel good in that moment? Is it wet tissue touching wet tissue that triggers that feeling? Of course not. If that's true, kissing your dog would turn you on. All of your emotions are nothing but a flurry of biochemical storms in your brains, and we can spark them at any moment. But first, we must learn how to take control of them consciously instead of living in reaction. Most of our emotional responses are learned responses to the environment. We've deliberately modeled some of them and stumbled across others. I do want to stop here and say we have to learn how to take control of we must take control of our emotions consciously instead of living in reaction. Simply being aware of these factors is the foundation for understanding the power of state. Without a doubt, everything you and I do, we do to avoid pain or gain pleasure. But we can instantly change what we believe will lead to pain or pleasure by redirecting our focus and changing our mental, emotional, physiological states. As I said in chapter 3 of Unlimited Power. A state can be defined as the sum of millions of neurological processes happening within us. The sum total of our experience at any moment in time. Most of our states happen without any conscious direction on our part. We see something and we respond to it by going into a state. It may be a resourceful and useful state, or an unresourceful and limiting state, but there's not much that most of us do to control it. Have you ever found yourself unable to remember a friend's name, or how to spell a difficult word like house? How come you weren't, and difficult is in quotations, how come you weren't able to do this? You certainly knew the answer. Is it because you're stupid? No. It's because you are in a stupid state. The difference between acting badly or brilliantly is not based on your ability, but on the state of your mind and or body in any given moment. You can be gifted with the courage and determination of Marva Collins, the grace and flair of Fred Astaire, the strength and endurance of Nolan Ryan, the compassion and intellect of Albert Einstein. But if you continually submerge yourself in negative states, you'll never fulfill that promise of excellence. However, if you know the secret of accessing your most resourceful state, you can literally work wonders. The state that you're in at any given moment determines your perceptions of reality and thus your decisions and behavior. In other words, your behavior is not the result of your ability, but the state that you're in at this moment. To change your ability, change your state, to open up the multitude of resources that lie within you, put yourself in a state of resourcefulness and active expectancy and watch miracles happen. So let's see, to open up the multitude of resources that lie within you, put yourself in a state of resourcefulness and activate expectancy. So you got to be expecting what you want. So how can we change our own emotional states? Think of your states as operating a lot like a TV set. In order to have bright, vivid color with incredible sound, you need to plug in and turn on. Turning on your physiology is like giving the set of electricity it needs to giving the set the electricity it needs to operate. If you don't have the juice, you'll have no picture, no sound, just a blank screen. Similarly, if you don't turn on by using your entire body, in other words, your physiology, you may indeed find yourself unable to spell house. Have you ever woken up and stumbled around not able to think clearly or function until you moved around enough to get your blood flowing? Once the static is cleared, you're turned on and the ideas begin to flow. If you're in the wrong state, you're not going to get any reception, even if you got the right ideas. Of course, once you're plugged in, you've got to be turned to the right channel to get what you really want. Mentally, you've got to focus on what empowers you. Whatever you focus on, whatever you tune into, you will feel more intensely. So if you don't like what you're doing, maybe it's time to change the channel. There are unlimited sensations, unlimited ways of looking at virtually anything in life. All these sensations that you want are available all of the time, and all you've got to do is tune in to the right channel. There are two primary ways, then, to change your emotional state. By changing the way you use your physical body, or by changing your focus. That's really great right there, to know that something that you can change in yourself is simply by changing your body. Physiology, the power of movement. One of the most powerful distinctions that I've made in the last 10 years of my life is simply this. Emotion is created by motion. Everything that we feel is the result of how we use our bodies. Even the most minute changes in our facial expressions or our gestures will shift the way that we're feeling in any moment, and therefore, the way we evaluate our lives, the way we think, and the way we act. Try something ridiculous with me for a second. Pretend you're a rather bored and humorless symphony conductor, rhythmically swinging your arms in and out. Do it very slowly. Don't get too excited. Just do it as a matter of routine, and make sure your face reflects a state of boredom. I'm testing this out right now, by the way. Okay. Notice how that feels. Now take your hands, clap them together explosively, and snap them back out as fast as you can with a big silly grin on your face. Intensify this by adding the vocal movement of an outrageously loud and explosive sound. Huzzah! The moment of air through your chest, throat, mouth, and mouth will change how you feel even more radically. Yeah, that's changing pretty quickly. That motion and speed you've created both in your body and your vocal cords will instantly change the way you feel. Every emotion you ever feel has specific physiology linked to it. Posture, breathing, patterns of movement, facial expressions. For depression, these are certainly obvious. In Unlimited Power, I talk about the physical self and so forth. Once you learn how to use your body when in certain emotional states, you can return to those states or avoid them simply by changing your physiology. The challenge is that most of us limit ourselves to just a few habitual patterns of physiology. We assume them automatically, not realizing how great a role they play in shaping our behaviors from moment to moment. So just imagine that. You can literally change how you feel in a moment just by changing your body. And almost anybody can change the way their body feels. We each have over 80 different muscles in our faces. And if these muscles get accustomed to expressing depression, boredom, or frustration, then this habitual muscular pattern literally begins to dictate our states. Not to mention our physical character. I always have people in my Date with Destiny seminar write down all the emotions they feel in an average week, and out of the myriad possibilities, I found that the average is less than a dozen. Why? Because most people have limited patterns of physiology that result in limited patterns of expression. So types of emotions an individual might feel in a week: stressed out, frustrated, angry, insecure, lonely, bored, miserable, happy, relieved, loved, excited, joyous. This is such a short menu of emotional choices when you consider the thousands of enticing states available. Take care not to limit yourself to such a short list. I suggest you take advantage of the whole buffet. Try new things and cultivate a refined palate. That's it. That's fun, right? Cultivating a refined palate of emotion, experiencing a very wide range of emotions. How about experiencing more enthusiasm, fascination, enchantment, cheerfulness, playfulness, intrigue, sensuality, desire, gratitude, curiosity, creativity, capability, confidence, outrageousness, boldness, consideration, kindness, gentleness, humor? Why not come up with a long list of your own? That's pretty crazy, because that almost seems like every positive relationship you could think of, or every positive emotion you could think of, but it's probably way more. Let's try to think of one. So, enthusiasm, fascination, excitement. Oh, right there, excitement. Excitement is not in there. Playfulness, tenderness, enchantment, gratitude, tenderness. If you can think of any, feel free to share. The joy of giving. I guess that would be compassion. Compassion. What's that word when you're feeling generosity? Intrigue. Oh, that's already on there. Interest. Happiness. A lot of words. But anyway, those are just some words to make up, just so you can expand on the list. You can experience any of these just by changing the way you use your body. You can feel strong, you can smile, you can change anything in a minute just by laughing. You've heard the old adage, someday you'll look back on this and laugh. If that's true, why not look back and laugh now? Haha! Why wait? Wake your body up. Learn to put it in pleasurable states consistently, no matter what's happened. How? Create energy by the way you think of something over and over again, and you'll change the sensations you link to that situation in the future. If you repeatedly use your body in weak ways, if you drop your shoulders on a regular basis, if you walk around like you're tired, you will feel tired. How could you do otherwise? Your body leads your emotions. The emotional state you're in then begins to affect your body, and it becomes a sort of endless loop. Notice how you're sitting even now. Sit up right now and create more energy in your body as you continue not only to read, but also to master these principles. What are some things you can do immediately to change your state and therefore how you feel and how you perform? Take deep breaths in through your nose and exhale strongly through your mouth. Put a huge grin on your face and smile at your children. If you really want to change your life, commit for the next 7 days to spending 1 minute 5 times a day grinning from ear to ear in the mirror. This will feel incredibly stupid, but remember, by this physical act you will be constantly triggering this part of your brain and creating a neurological pathway to pleasure that will become habitual. So do it and make it fun. Better yet, go out for a skip instead of a jog. Skipping is such a powerful way to change your state because it does 4 things. It's great exercise. You have less stress on your body than running. You won't be able to keep a serious look on your face, and you entertain everybody who's driving by. So you'll be changing other people's states too by making them laugh. Oh, excuse me. Congested right now. But that'd be hilarious. Wouldn't you be find it amusing if you saw somebody skipping instead of running? That would be awesome. If somebody ran a marathon, instead of running a marathon, they skipped the entire marathon. How hilarious would that be? I would love to see that someday. But anyway, what a powerful thing laughter is. My son Joshua, I might try something like that as like a goofy thing. Skip a 5K. What a powerful thing laughter is. My son Joshua, see, just the idea of this alone makes you laugh a little bit, doesn't it? What a powerful thing laughter is. My son Joshua has a friend named Matt who finds it so easy to laugh that it's infectious. And everyone who hears him starts laughing too. If you really want to improve your life, learn to laugh. Along with your 5 smiles each day, make yourself laugh for no reason at all, 3 times each day for 7 days. In a recent poll conducted by Entertainment Weekly magazine, they found that 82% of the people who go to movies want to laugh, 7% want to cry, and 3% want to scream. This gives you an idea if you read Norman Cousins' book, or Deepak Chopra's, or Dr. Bernie Siegel's, or studied psychoneuroimmunology at all. You know what laughter can do to the physical body to stimulate the immune system. Why not find somebody who laughs and mirror them? Have some fun. Say, will you do me a favor? You've got a great laugh. Let me try and duplicate it. Coach me. I guarantee you'll crack each other up in the process. Breathe the way they breathe. Take on their posture and body movements. Use the same facial expressions. Take on their posture and body movements. Use the same facial expressions. Make the same sounds. You'll feel stupid when you start, but after a while you'll get into it. And you'll both be laughing hysterically because you both look so silly. But in the process, you'll begin to lay the neurological networking to create laughter on a regular basis. As you do this again and again, you'll find it very easy to laugh, and you'll certainly have fun. We know too much and feel too little. At least we feel too little of those creative emotions. I just can't stop laughing about this idea of skipping instead of running. It would be very humorous. We know too much and feel too little. At least we feel too little of those creative emotions from which a good life springs. So we know too much and feel too little. At least we feel too little of those creative emotions I don't really know what that means, because we know too much and feel too little. That's pretty self-explanatory. We know a lot. We don't feel enough. At least we feel too little of those creative emotions from which a good life springs. So at minimum, we feel like at the least, it's important to do those things. It could have a few interpretations. By Bertrand Russell. So let's see if this is a good place. All right, we're going to continue on for a little bit more, and we'll wrap up soon. So anyone can continue to feel good if they already feel good, or if they're on a roll. It doesn't take much to accomplish this, but the key in life is to be able to make yourself feel good when you don't feel good, or when you don't even want to feel good. Know that you can do this instantaneously by using your body as a tool to change state. Once you identify the physiology attached to a state, you can use it to create the states you desire at will. Years ago, I worked with John Denver, a man who impresses me not only with his musical ability, but also because his private persona is absolutely in line with his public image. The reason he succeeded is so clear. He's such an incredibly warm and caring man. The reason I was working with him was that he was experiencing writer's block. We identified the times when he wrote his best songs and discovered that their inspiration had come to him when he was doing something physical. Usually an entire song would flow through him after he'd skied down a mountain, flown his jet or his biplane, or driven his sports car at high speeds. Usually speed was involved, and the physical adrenaline rush along with the experience of focusing on the beauty of nature were all a major part of his creative strategy. At the time, he was experiencing a few frustrations in some areas of his life and had not been involved in the same intense outdoor activity. Just by making this change and getting back into a strong physiology, he was able to restore the certainty and flow of his creativity immediately. Just by changing our physiology, we can change our level of performance. Our capability is always there, and what we've got to do is put ourselves into states where it is accessible. The key to success, then, is to create patterns of movement that create confidence, a sense of strength, flexibility, a sense of personal power, and fun. Realize that stagnation comes from lack of movement. Can you think of an old person? Someone who doesn't get around much anymore? Getting old is not a matter of age. It's a lack of movement. And the ultimate lack of movement is death. If you see children walking along the sidewalk after a rain, and there's a puddle in front of them, what are they going to do when they get to that puddle? They're going to jump in. They're going to laugh, splash around, and have a good time. What does an older person do? walk around it. No, they won't just walk around it. They'll complain the whole time. You want to live differently. You want to live with a spring in your step, a smile on your face. Why not make cheerfulness, outrageousness, playfulness a new priority for yourself? Make feeling good your expectation. You don't have to have a reason to feel good. You're alive. You can feel good for no reason at all. So we're going to stop right there. And the next section is focus the power of concentration. But some really interesting ideas there. What's something goofy, something ridiculous, something that would make people laugh, and you might feel silly about it, but at the end of the day, it's going to be silly. What's something that you could do? Skip instead of run, or jog. Hop around like a bunny rabbit. I don't know. Wearing a basket on your head and letting your dog sit on top of it. Wearing funny sunglasses. Warren Buffett, billionaire Warren Buffett, has this thing he does called, I think there's a book he even wrote about it called tap dancing to work. Like he tap dances to work supposedly sometimes. I'm sure I'd tap dance to work if I made $1 billion in a year. What else? Like what ideas do you have? Feel free to share them. Feel free to think about them. Do what you want with them. Maybe it's wearing a medal that you won, or singing your favorite song in public. Whatever it is that makes you happy, that makes you want to create, that helps you take control of your physical and your emotional self. Right? I think that's the ultimate idea of that chapter is, what can you do right now? You know, you might be in like a down state. You might not be feeling well. You might not be in a good state, and you're like, this is stupid. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Who would want to wear funny sunglasses? Who would want to jump in a puddle? Who would want to, his solution to my problems is going outside and skipping, right? And at some level, that's not taking control of the state. So at some level, how can you take control of your state? Because in those positive states is where you can become the most creative, the most powerful, the most, I don't want to say productive, but the most the best version of yourself. And with that said, thank you for watching this. Thank you for tuning in into this reading and interpretations and analysis, if you so want to call it, of Awaken the Giant Within. And have a great day. Have a great Sunday.